Hey everybody, and welcome to Project Premium Harvest. My name is Matt. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Roundhill distribution for the third week of March. We're going to be talking about XDTE, QDTE, RDTE, and YBTC. The point of this video is I don't just want to read off declarations to you of, oh, these funds are paying X amount of declaration. I wanted to provide something of value so that we can actually use and then make a decision based off of the value we're providing here. So for the spreadsheets I have made, I've also included, since the last video, which was yesterday, 52-week all-time high and different total returns for inception price and the 52-week high. So we'll talk about the different numbers. We're going to talk about those 4 different funds, and I will create a yield max one. It's just that I didn't have enough time in the day, but without holding back, let's get started and looking at these spreadsheets. So, okay, starting off with RDTE, it's going to be the first one we talk about. RDTE has had about 26 payments since its inception of September 27th, 2024. If we look at the distributions and how much total premium it has paid out for those 26 payments, it has been $7.71. And just to kind of talk about the numbers at the top here, the inception price was $45, and the all-time high that we have noticed since this fund's inception was $45.65. And in the yellow here, I have highlighted the high points of the distribution and the high points of the share price. And so for the distribution, the highest premium RDTE has ever paid out was 59 cents. And kind of the all-time high, which we just mentioned, was at $45.65. We've talked about total premium. We talked about the total number of distributions and payments. But now let's talk about how much you are actually getting paid as an average distribution. So per distribution basis, you're getting paid about 29 cents per share. And then if we look at the share price change in value since its inception, so I basically took this $45 and divided that into the current share price of $36.20. We are technically negative 19.56% if you invested since its inception. But if we look at the total return, basically adding this $7.71 into that $36.20, we have a total return of only negative 2.41%. So looking at RDTE, not so great. But let's look at the all-time highs. It's obviously not going to be as good because usually the at inception price is better than, an all-time high. But either way, if we look at the share price change in value all time, we're negative 20.7%. And if we look at that as a total return, that's negative 3.8%. Not great. Since inception, it's only been out for 6 months. So can't really complain too much. However, we don't want to see this 3 months after this fund was incepted. It kind of went into a bear market. So we do give it a little bit of benefit of the doubt. But end of the day, this is something we don't want to see. We don't want to see total return at a negative number. And I'm not really even a big fan of looking into total return, but here we are. With that being said, the average share price for RDTE is $41.96. If you can find yourself buying RDTE below this price, you are getting a good discount because the average is $41.96. Cool. Now let's go over to XDTE. Oh, and how could I forget? We have to talk about the declaration. So for the declaration for this week, the third week of March, which of the payable date is March 21st, 2025, it's going to be a 32-cent distribution. Cool. And the share price, I just did it for today because I just wanted to annotate the numbers already. Now let's move over to XDTE. Maybe zoom in a little bit more. Enhance. Okay, so the inception price for XDTE was $52, and the all-time high was that $53.57. And since XDTE has been incepted, it's had exactly 52 payments, which is coming up on its 1-year anniversary. So this is actually great timing to create this video. But if we scroll down and look at the total premium, since inception, after having 52 payments, if you owned it, you would have gotten $13.11 of distribution per share. And we talked about the number of distributions, 52. And if we look at that as an average distribution, that's about 25 cents a share. If we look at the share price in value, this is just accounting for the share price, nothing else. we are negative 10.73%. But if we also add in the total distributions in addition to the share price, the total return is closer to 14.49% here. And then basically the share price change in value from the all-time high was negative 13.75%. But then if you invested at this point and then also got the distribution, you were net positive 11.14%. And the average share price for XDTE is $51.37. If you can buy shares below that mark, you are getting them on a good discount, at a good discount, and keep it up. Cool. Now let's go over to QDTE. Forgot to mention the declaration, which is half the reason why you guys are here. So for the third week of March 2025, the declaration for XDTE is 32 cents. Now let's go over to QDTE for real this time. Okay, so for QDTE, we have the inception price at $45 and the all-time high price at $45.98. So don't forget the distribution this time. For the third week of March 2025, we're going to get a 27-cent distribution from QDTE. And from here, I highlighted the highest distribution that QDTE has ever paid out, and that's at 86.95. We scroll down, like the all-time high is also annotated at the top of the spreadsheet, and it is here at that $45.98. Now let's talk about the total premium for QDTE. So the total premium for QDTE was $15.74, right? They had the same amount of distributions as XDTE of 52. And if you look at the average distribution per share per payment, it's about 30 cents a share, which is pretty good. But if we look at the share price change in value, basically since inception, we're down 17.15%, not very good. But if we do the total return since inception, so we're going to add that $15 of distribution into the fund, we're actually up 15.17%. Same story, the share price change in value from the all-time high, we're actually negative 19.04%. But if we add in the total premium into that calculation, the total return is going to be 12.71%. And the average share price for QDTE is $42.26. So if you can buy shares below that number, that's pretty good. Now moving over to the final fund in Roundhill's weekly distributions. And I just learned that YBTC is actually a weekly payer starting as of 2025. Didn't know that. But let's dive into those numbers. All right, guys, the last payer for Roundhill is YBTC, and with an inception price of $50 a share and an all-time high of $55.52. The distribution that is going to be paid out to the investor for the third week of March 2025 is going to be 56 cents a share. And let's scroll down to look at the yellow highlights. The highest distribution payment that YBTC has ever paid out was $4.12. And if we look at the all-time high share price, that was at $55.52. Now let's look at the total premium. The total premium for owning YBTC since inception, so it's about 1 year and 3 months, so year and a quarter of inception, you've been paid out $27.83 a share. And if you look at, well, there's 24 distribution payments, and then the average distribution is about $1.15 per share. But if we look at the share price change in value since its inception, right, we're technically negative 15.48% because the current share price is $42.26, but the inception price was $50. That's how we have this negative number. But if you look at the total return of taking this, $42.26 and adding the total premium, we're actually up 40.19% since its inception. So that's actually pretty good. Nobody wants to see a share price go down, but the total return actually looks pretty good. Now let's look at the all-time high share price change in value. So that's negative 23.88%. Obviously, it's an all-time high, so it's going to hurt a little bit more. But if we look at the total return with distributions incorporated into that price, we're actually up 26.25%. And the average share price for YBTC is about $48.15. So if we can buy something below this threshold, we are doing great. All right, guys, that wraps up the video. Hopefully it was informational and gave you a better idea of how these funds operate and gives you a better idea if, one, you should invest into these funds. Let me know if you guys want me to add anything more into these spreadsheets. Somebody has mentioned VWAP and some of the comments. It's going to take a lot of legwork for me to get that incorporated into these spreadsheets, but if it is a value add, I will definitely do that. Yeah, guys, hope you're doing well out there. That's all I have for you. Matt out. See you at the next video.